All right, thanks everyone for coming out today.
Yeah. Get it?
My name's Chris. Today we're going to be talking about the Bill of Rights. So who's familiar with the Bill of Rights? Anybody? Yeah. Right, what do you know about it?
Not as much as I should.
All right. How about you? What do you know about it?
Something that was created after the Constitution to kind of plug some holes or make things more understandable.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. So it was written by James Madison in 1789, and it was ratified by Virginia. I think it was the last state to ratify it in December 15th, 1791. It was based on the Virginia Constitution, and it consists of the first 10 amendments to the Bill of Rights, or to the U.S. Constitution. So why was the Bill of Rights enacted? There were lots of concerns after the Constitution came about that the federal government was going to be too powerful, kind of be able to be tyrannical, kind of like the kings that they had just fought a revolution against. So they argued that there needed to be more protections for individual liberty and rights. So they enacted the Bill of Rights to place specific restrictions on the powers granted by the government, to the government by the Constitution, and to guarantee the protection of individual rights under law. So now I'll go into each of the amendments. There's a lot of them. There's 27. There's a lot of amendments, but we're just going to go over the first 10 today. So the first amendment is everybody knows that freedom of speech is just kind of the first thing that's associated with the First Amendment, but it's actually got a lot of stuff in there. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right for the people to peaceably assemble and to petition their government for redress of grievances. This is a really important one. You know, we all want to be able to free to worship be spiritual, worship a deity if we should choose to do so, but we don't want to be forced to do so either. We should all be able to speak our minds, especially against the government. I mean, if there's something that the government is doing that you don't feel is right, you should be able to speak your mind and have an open discussion so that we can all evolve as a society and get better. Same with the press is a very important tool for that, although it's increasingly controlled by a select few, so we're not really getting as many voices as we should. So the Second Amendment is all about the right to bear arms. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is kind of a controversial one right now. Right? There's lots of stuff going on in the news, shootings, and people trying to justify laws to make it harder for people to own and carry firearms. And so yeah, and that's kind of a whole can of worms with the Second Amendment that we could talk about all day, but we'll just move on. So the Third Amendment is kind of irrelevant now. It's no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. So back in the day, the army would just come and knock on your door and say, hey, I'm going to be staying here, you're sleeping on the floor tonight. And when they were done in the morning, they'd take your chickens or whatever and be on their way. And people weren't too happy with that. The army was supposed to be there protecting them, and then they're there taking all their stuff. So they put in this amendment. But now with how modern the military is and how mechanized their forces are, they probably won't be asking to stay at your house. So the Fourth Amendment. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. I put an asterisk by the Fourth Amendment here, and it's because the Patriot Act has effectively eliminated the protections that the Fourth Amendment provided. That's kind of unfortunate. The Fifth Amendment. Now, anybody familiar with television, sort of Law and Order or whatever, and you don't want to incriminate yourself in a court of law, I say, I plead the Fifth.
Plead the Fifth.
Right. Well, that's one tiny aspect of the Fifth Amendment. There's actually quite a lot to it. So I'll read it out here. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without the due process of law, nor shall any private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So there's a whole lot to go over here in the Fifth Amendment. The first thing it does is differentiate between military and civilians. So there's a different set of laws and courts for military than there is for civilians. If you're military, you've been trained to kill people, and if you commit a murder, you're going to go to a court-martial. You're not going to go to a civilian court. So it's an important distinction. The second part is the kind of double jeopardy rule, where if you've gone to court, a jury has found you innocent, they can't retry you for the same crime again. Because otherwise they could just keep taking you to court over and over and over again until finally a jury finds you guilty, or even if they don't find you guilty, if they keep finding you innocent, they're going to drain your bank account, so you have to keep paying for lawyers to try and defend yourself. So it's an important one that once you've been found innocent, you can't be tried again for the same crime. Nor shall any witness be compelled to be a witness against himself. So that's, you don't have to incriminate yourself. If police show up and ask you something, you can say, I'm not talking. Nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. So this is an important one. If you get pulled over by a police officer, California Highway Patrol, whatever, and whatever happens, they decide they want to impound your car. Basically, you can inform them that they're about to violate your Fifth Amendment rights, because the police officer is not a judge, jury, and executioner. They cannot. The due process of law involves a court, so they can't take your property, your car, without going through the court system. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So this gets into eminent domain, where government says, oh, you're not using this property as efficiently as you could. There's a mall that wants to be built here. They're going to pay more property taxes, so we're going to kick you off your property and let this mall be built here. And so that's kind of actually happening a lot, but it's unconstitutional. Okay, so the Sixth Amendment. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witness against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. So this again has several things in it. You have the right to a speedy and public trial. Why is this important? Well, they can just lock you up in a dungeon and wait for 5 years till your trial finally comes up, and you're found innocent. You can't get those 5 years back, right? You've already served your time, even though you're found innocent. So it's really important to have a speedy trial. And then public. Why do we want it to be public? Do we want to air all your dirty laundry on TV, on CNN, so everyone can know? I mean, it should be public, so they can't take you in a back room and say you hear all these sounds of getting beat up, and then they come out and say, oh yep, he was guilty, we took care of him, he's dead, or whatever. So it's important to have a public trial.
You confess.
Right, yeah. It's the next part, to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation. So if you're in jail, they have to tell you why they're holding you. They can't just say, we're going to hold you because we feel like it. although that's kind of in jeopardy now. To be confronted with the witness against them. So if someone's making accusations against you, they can't just hide and, oh, this is an anonymous person who's saying you did this thing. They have to be on record, and you have to be able to confront them saying, you know, I didn't do this, and you have to have the assistance of counsel. So this doesn't necessarily mean having a lawyer for you. This means someone providing legal advice, but when you have a lawyer, you hire a lawyer, you're no longer in charge of your own legal affairs. The other person is handling it for you, so there's lots of issues you can get into trouble with that. And I put an asterisk by the Sixth Amendment here as well, because the Patriot Act effectively kind of eviscerated that as well. To the Seventh Amendment next. In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of common law. So another asterisk by this, and unfortunately there's no common law courts left in the United States. So we don't really have a lot of remedies that used to be available throughout history. With common law has been kind of thousands of years. Common law has been what's in the law of the land, and that's all courts now are statutory. There's three different types of law. There's common law, which is what's been used throughout history. Then there's statutory law. There's admiralty law, which is the law of the sea. It's military law as well. And there's Uniform Code of Military Justice, I think, which handles the military law as well. Okay, the Eighth Amendment. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. So that's pretty self-explanatory. We don't want to, be thrown in jail and say you can't get out unless you're paying us $10 million, or we don't want cruel and unusual punishments. We don't want to be treating people and torturing people and stuff like that. Okay. The Ninth Amendment. The enumeration of the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So this is kind of it's saying anything that we've listed in the Constitution doesn't mean that anything that's not listed in the Constitution doesn't mean you can't do it. So we listed positive rights, and it doesn't mean anything that's not listed you can't do. It just means that they enshrine certain rights to be held as very, very important. And then the 10th Amendment is kind of the opposite, is the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited to it by the states, are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people. So anything, any powers that are not delegated to the federal government are reserved for the states or individual people. And there's a great resource on to learn more about the Bill of Rights, the Constitution and stuff. On YouTube, there's a gentleman named Michael Badnarik, and he's got a 6.5-hour lecture on YouTube called Constitution Class, and it's quite a lot to get through, but it's definitely worth checking it out. So with that, anybody have any questions on Bill of Rights?
Which one's your favorite?
Which one's my favorite? That's a good question. Probably the fifth, but
Plead the fifth, right?
right. But
I feel like a lot of this is frequently violated.
yes,
And some of it doesn't seem like it should always apply anymore either.
right. Unless you know these by heart and really know them and are willing to defend them, your rights are going to get trampled all over. So it's very important to know them.
Agreed. So, did any of you here speak to being taught this in high school at all?
They went over the Bill of Rights very briefly. I don't think there's an
didn't go into
in-depth
depth,
thing where they
yeah.
don't really cover how important it is to everyone's lives. But,
U.S.
I'm-
history.
I'm older than most of you here, but folks, I mean, it was drilled into us in the 60s about
Right.
the Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
I had a civics teacher who I had to know every one of these to
Yeah.
get through his class. This is, my,
You should know it.
my kids didn't have that. So.
Yeah.
No, you can have multiple choice.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
you're like, that one sounds like the fifth. That
Yeah.
one sounds like a,
Right.
yeah, and then you're done with that class.
Right, exactly. So then the Patriot Act is, when
Diluting
you
it.
see something like that, I was
What is a Patriot Act actually?
stunned by that would even be brought up by our legislature,
Right.
who are lawyers, who know this.
Who should know it and want to defend it.
And when the Patriot Act passed, and there's the Patriot Act too.
Right, there's Patriot Act 2, and there's a Military Commissions Act, I think, which kind of also eviscerated some.
So Chris, what is the
Yeah,
Patriot
can you
Act?
explain
Yeah, I
that?
don't know.
What is the Patriot Act? All right, it's the USA Patriot Act. It's actually an acronym that stands for Uniting and Strengthening America by providing the appropriate tools for combating
Terrorism?
terrorism, or it's some sort of it's basically a law that dramatically increased the powers of law enforcement to kind of ignore people's rights under the guise of fighting terrorism. So it's
Which can mean anything.
right, yeah. It
You're a terrorist, wear a
granted
blue shirt.
sweeping powers to the United States government that had never been there before. It's kind of like the Enabling Act passed by Germany after the Reichstag fire burned, and that kind of enabled, put the legal framework in place for the Nazis to come to power and do all the stuff that they did. So it's kind of some scary stuff.
And did they have the Patriot Act ready to go?
The Patriot Act had been, it was sitting in a desk, waiting to go.
What year was it?
2001?
It was-
Just
yeah,
after
it was
9/11.
Yeah,
just after
2001.
9/11, they
It was
used that
2
to,
years waiting or sitting around just in case, and then all of a sudden this event
something happened
happened.
to
And
whip up a
then,
frenzy and everybody was ready to
Huh.
jump
That's
on
weird how
board.
that happened.
Yeah, that's
Suspicious.
Hegelian dialectic, right? Where you
Wow.
create a problem and then get the reaction, so people demand the solution that you have to offer.